We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Hopefully, your day is going well. It's Thursday, plenty to talk about. I needed a helping hand today, and thankfully, Eric, our friend from Iowa, decided to join us today to offer some insights, maybe to talk while I catch my breath because there's a lot of shit going on. Eric, thanks for showing up tonight.
Well, thanks for having me.
Um, it's hard to imagine where we start here. I think the biggest story is, and I did a TikTok about this earlier today. This was kind of a I told you so moment. I sometimes tell people I'm not the kind of guy to say I told you so. Actually, fuck it. Yeah, I'm that guy. I'm that guy every time. But I've spent the last multiple years listening to people tell us, oh, nothing's going to happen to Donald Trump. Nothing's ever going to happen. He's going to get away with it. This woe is me, this negativity, it pissed me off. And I think we can honestly say, as of yesterday, some shit happened to Donald Trump.
Oh, very much so. And it sounds like the worst of it is yet to come.
Yeah, yeah. I
Uh,
mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Well, as they figure all this out, his businesses, and from the little bits I've heard, it sounds like it is not just the businesses in New York. Apparently, his Trump Tower in Chicago, or whatever it's called, his building in Chicago, Doral Golf Course was listed in there. Some of the LLCs and all of the companies under the Trump organization banner, which is hundreds of shell companies of this company owns this and this and that, however they
Right,
do it all.
right.
Sounds like all of it is forced to dissolve, and he could be out on his ass.
Well, isn't that what's happening here? Is that they're putting these things into receivership, which basically means they put some third party in there to run it with the ultimate goal of dissolving these companies. You can't just shut them down tomorrow. There's a lot of things, people have said to me, well, why doesn't he just move his business to Florida? And then he can beat this whole thing. Well, yeah, if you could get a two-wheeler big enough to load up the Trump Tower on a fucking truck, you could probably bring it to, what he has going on in New York does have arms into other states, New Jersey, Florida, Chicago. And when it comes to the crimes he committed, it kind of leaks out into all those things. While the basis is in New York, the home office is in New York, a lot of things are affected, and they're all tied to this theft of money, and they're going to want to grab as much money as they can from it. The government
Oh,
is.
definitely. And I don't know how this is all going to work. As we were saying before we came on the podcast, even the state of New York isn't entirely sure how this is going to work
Yeah.
as far as dissolving something like this, and how do they have to sell off the properties, or but it's not going to be something as simple as he opens up Trump Organization 2 headquartered in Miami
No.
and transfer all the property. They're not going to let him do that, but he might be able to, you know if even if they're dissolving it, he might be allowed to keep the companies that are running and basing that are based out of other states. Those might not be affected. I don't know.
I don't either. What he could do is like move to Arkansas. I don't think he has anything going on there. And put up a roadside stand selling Let's Go Brandon t-shirts. That may be his only option at this point.
And the dumb Trumplifucks would buy it. They'd flock to that stand
Oh,
and
hell
spend
yeah.
$1,000 a piece to buy a shirt.
It's funny when we first started talking about these potential trials and the investigations and all that stuff, people would say to me, oh, he'll never go to jail. And I tended to agree. It's going to be hard to put a former president in jail. Well, all that we've seen up to this point, I've changed my mind about that. I don't think there's any choice. They don't have any choice but to put him in jail once he's convicted. But at that time, I said, look, I would be happy if Donald Trump just ended up broke, losing all his properties, losing all his power and prestige, and just be walking around in his orange tan and shitty pants around Manhattan, mumbling to himself. And with this lawsuit, we're pretty much there.
Could
Now,
very easily be.
And the best part is that's just the hors d'oeuvres, because now the criminal trial starts. So you're going to be broke, have no power, have no properties. You're going to have no place to go. And now you got the criminal trials.
Well,
People would say, well, what if he gets locked down in Mar-a-Lago? That'll still be luxurious for him. It won't be a punishment. We're not convinced he'll have Mar-a-Lago after this shit is done.
true. And one of the things I just thought of is now that he's been convicted of fraud, and maybe not convicted, found liable, I think is the proper term for a
Liable,
civil
right?
case. But now they have a judgment against him for fraud, saying you have undervalued or overvalued your financial statements for the purposes of these loans. He was already having trouble getting banks to get him money.
Right.
He's not, no bank is going to touch him now. Not even a Russian bank. What is it? Deutsche Bank.
Deutsche Bank.
No
Well,
one's going to touch him.
the thing about it is after the Trump organization was convicted of 17 felony charges of fraud, I'd be surprised if after that they could get a fucking bank loan. But now it's in receivership. I don't know that, they're not going to be doing any new business. It's just going to be sitting stagnant as they try to parcel this thing out and get it done and finally get it dissolved. Donald Trump as a business will cease to exist in New York and will not be allowed back.
Right. But what I was thinking is, at least before, when it was the Trump organization that was found guilty of those fraud cases, he could have gone to a bank and, well, see, that was my organization, that was my CFO, that wasn't me. He could have maybe weaseled and talked his way out of it. He was personally named in this suit, and were his two boys.
Well, what's funny
So,
is it sounds like he's already, in a lot of his loans, he's already personally guaranteed the loans. So he's been doing this all along because his company doesn't pay their bills. So Donald Trump is using his name and fame and power to personally guarantee these. This is how he was getting loans. But we know, coming out of the presidency, he was having a tough time getting loans just based on his credit rating. And now nobody's going to fucking do business with him at this point.
No. I'd be lucky if he could get a $50 cash advance,
Right, right.
I'd be advertised.
I'd be happy to send him $50 at a 30% compounded interest rate. We could probably cut that deal. I'll never get the money back, but I will have the opportunity to sue Donald Trump, which would be payment enough for me. But I think when people hear this, we've heard so much about what was going on with Donald Trump and the things he did, and the potential ramifications from the things he's done. I don't know that this case has really hit home with most people. I got people still saying, oh, he's never going to pay. No, bitch, they're taking his shit. It doesn't matter if he doesn't pay. Because when this trial goes, they're going to decide how much he owes. 250 million is the bottom line. It'll probably be upper close to the billion range, given that what he's done. He's never going to write a check to anybody. They're just going to take all his shit. I don't know if people understand how devastating this truly is. This basically takes Donald Trump as a business entity off the fucking map and takes away his personal wealth and property as well.
No, I don't think they do, because you don't hear a lot like about a business supposedly as big as Donald Trump's ever going into receivership. And usually when you hear about a business or something that's where this has happened, they were already failing for some reason, right? Like they were already going under, and you expected them to be just like you expected them to go away. This is completely different. And I think that's part of it. Like you said, people don't understand the gravity of it. And then of course you got the Trumplefucks. I've seen comments listed under videos. Well, he wasn't found, there was no jury, so this doesn't count. And there was no, you can't, judge can't just rule a judgment without a jury. That's unconstitutional. Well, again, they have no idea of what any of that means.
First of all,
They're just,
you have to have the jury in a criminal trial. But the reason, first of all, the reason there was never going to be a jury in this lawsuit is because his lawyer fucked up and forgot to check a box. So it was going to be the judge that was going to make the decision anyway, because his lawyer fucked up. But this is a summary judgment, basically saying, hey, all the facts are here. We can save a lot of time. If you look at it and realize that there's no way out of this, you can just decide here. And that's what happened. And that's perfectly legal. I mean, if that's not perfectly legal, then please answer why Donald Trump's team also asked for a summary judgment to dismiss. Don't tell me a summary judgment doesn't work if you ask for one too.
oh, but they'll spin it. They'll try to say, oh, well, see, I was asking. It's different. It's okay if you're asking it to go away, but they can't just say I'm guilty and I did all these things without a jury. And it's ridiculous. It's stupid. And the ignorant among us are still eating it up. And I don't understand it.
You know what I love about this is they'll say, and we've heard about these kinds of things all through the investigations. Well, that doesn't count because of this. That doesn't count because of this. And we got to have this. Here's the deal. Regardless of what they say, can and can't be done, too late, bitch. It's already been done. It's over. Nothing you can say is going to fucking change it. You can try to appeal it. It ain't going to work because the facts are so blatant that a judge said, yeah, let's just fucking finish this thing. So the appeals aren't going to work. And since he has no access to his money now, where's he going to get the money to pay for the appeals? He's not, but he'll try to appeal it. It won't work. No, he hasn't had an appeal work in 4 years. So fuck him.
He's going to try to appeal. I did hear that he did get one of his delay tactics agreed to. And they're now extending it. Instead of 10 days, it's now going to be 30 days to try to figure out how to dissolve this whole thing.
Yeah.
And what that's going to look like. And that's partially because it's such a big company and there's so many different shell companies and there's this and there's this. They're just trying to figure it all out. And the government needs more time to figure out what to do.
Well, and the thing about it is, whether it be 10 days or 30 days, this is what Donald Trump does. He tries to delay things, but all he does is delay the inevitable. Delaying it from 10 days to 30 days doesn't change the evidence. It doesn't change the decision. It doesn't change anything. Like you say, it's probably more beneficial for the state to figure out how to do this. This is kind of an unprecedented situation. There have been other companies that have gone through this stuff, but not to this size. That's why I said earlier, this might be comparable, not so much being the same thing because they're not, but to what happened with Bernie Madoff. It created kind of a shock storm in New York because it was so huge. And what we found out about Bernie Madoff was that everything he did was fraud. There was nothing real. And that's where it's the same thing as Donald Trump. All the claims Donald Trump made, all the publicity, everything he did was fraudulent. He was not real, just like Bernie Madoff.
Oh, I see that connection. I know the whole Bernie Madoff thing, it was basically a pyramid scheme. And he suckered people in. And that's kind of what Donald Trump has done too, is he suckered people in into giving him loans and thinking he's a big shot businessman. And, oh, he's really good with money because he did this and he did that.
Yeah.
And as it's coming out, we're seeing the financials and these things are coming out. It's all smoke and mirrors. The best part that I thought was funny, apparently he put in these financial statements a disclosure saying that the values on here aren't real and should not be used as a basis for any evaluation of anything or something to that effect.
Yeah.
He put that disclaimer in there. Now saying, well, see, I put the disclaimer in there saying you can't rely on these financial statements.
Yeah.
So it's not really fraud because I did tell them that these weren't reliable.
Yeah. And my question is, if you're running an alleged billion-dollar corporation, or even you and I doing our taxes, say we did our taxes, And we fudged here and fudged there. And at the bottom, we put a sticker and said, now, these are my numbers and this is what I'm turning in. But yeah, it may not be exactly right. I'm rounding up. I'm doing this. Does that not put a red flag on our fucking taxes to say, okay, we got to find out what this motherfucker's doing? It's so ridiculous. That that's the arrogance of it. What troubles me is if he's been doing that all along, he's been getting away with it for fucking decades. What is the problem with our DOJ and our IRS up to now? Now they have to deal with it, but this isn't the first time, the first year that he's done this.
No, I think it was Hawk that said it. It's white collar crime,
Right,
and he had money. And up until 2011, Donald Trump was a Democrat,
right,
and he was donating to the Democratic Attorney General of the state of New York, the Democratic Attorney General in
right.
Manhattan. He was donating to their campaigns. Well, and every time it sounded like there was another investigation coming into Trump, there was another donation to those Democratic uh, attorneys general or district attorneys or whatever, and suddenly it disappeared.
You said something though. You said he had money. And I think we're finding out he never had money because I've having been in business for myself a couple of times. I found myself and I'm thinking to myself, I'm doing really, really good because I got a lot of money flowing from this side, flowing from that side. It's coming in, it's going out until you sit down and look at it and you go, I ain't making any money. A lot of money is traveling through me, but after taxes and costs and stuff, I'm not making any money. Donald Trump was just in the middle of a whirlwind of money, but none of it was fucking his.
Yeah, I'd say 90% to 95% was probably that case, is that
Yeah.
it wasn't tangible, actual money of his,
No.
but he would earmark some of it. He would write it off as a business expense or whatever and make these big contracts. And they were probably fraudulent write-offs too. But then he would make these contributions and at least make it appear like he had big money.
Let me just say this. His only business was, and the only profit he derived was from that money he cheated out of banks, insurance companies, or the US government. That's where he made his profit. He didn't make anything or do anything that was profitable or successful. He made all his money off of grifting the IRS, the US government, banks, and insurance companies. That's where he made his money, not in hotels, not in
Oh,
golf clubs, just grifting other people and stealing.
oh yeah. I bet if they did a deep dive and audited all of his hotels, I bet you they were all probably belly up. I mean,
Yeah.
he bankrupted the Trump Taj Mahal because he was told you can't build, I think you were the one telling me he built too big of a casino because he was told you can't build it over this size or you won't make any money. And he said, I
Right,
know better.
right, right.
And, you know, if he knew how to actually run a business and make money, he wouldn't have bankrupted 6 businesses.
No,
But he made money, like you said, grifting and stealing. And I know one of the other things he did is he would build these golden parachutes into all of his businesses. Even
yeah,
when it went belly up, he'd give himself a big payday right before declaring bankruptcy.
right.
Or what was it? I read somewhere one of his, he went to go visit one of his own companies. And just the day he spent there looking at the company or something, he billed him like $1 million as a consulting fee,
Right, 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 right.
and,
Yeah,
and then charged him for the helicopter ride to get to his own place.
yeah, that's hilarious. It's just it's it's unimaginable to me that this guy was handed $400 million from his dad. He blew all that. He lost all of that. He was on the verge of bankruptcy in total, where he was going to be out of business. And then magically, you remember that you may be too young, but then magically he was healthy again. So the only way he could be healthy again wasn't his business acumen. He had to have an influx of money from somebody else. And since daddy was dead and he already wasted all his money, we can only presume it came from a foreign country like Saudi Arabia or Russia, probably Russia at that stage of the game. Donald Trump will tell us, oh, I got all kinds of money elsewhere. I'm worth more money than that. And I've got all kinds of things going on. My worth is much higher than they suggest. And I never really did this stuff. But the fact of the matter is, all that money and all that cash on hand he is alleged to have doesn't seem to show up on taxes. Every tax report that we've seen of his shows him losing money. He never made money.
No, exactly. And I think he even said himself at a press conference or something about losing money or whatever. Well, of course I'd lose money if it saved me on my taxes. That makes me smart or something like that.
Yeah, yeah. Eric said something. Eric is upset. And this is the big important thing we got to remember too. It's not just Donald Trump that's on the hook here. It's Don Cocaine Jr. and it's dipshit Eric Trump. They're going to get hit too. Big difference between them and Donnie Trump. Donnie Trump's got maybe a couple years left. These kids got about 40 years left that they have to live through it. And they have to do something they've never done before. They've got to dig out of a hole that they can't dig out of. And at some point, they're going to have to figure out how to earn money without working for daddy. And their reputations have kind of been smudged here. But Eric said something that was interesting. He was saying, I can't believe the state of New York is destroying a man and his business and all this sort of stuff, looking for sympathy, trying to play the victim. And we should remind people that, okay, I understand you're losing your business and it's tough and you're being exposed and they're taking all your money. But how many times did Donald Trump do that to small businesses over the life of his time in business? Companies he didn't pay and said, fucking sue me, and then run them out of money and time and then just leave them twisting in the wind. He probably bankrupted more businesses that weren't his than his own businesses. So I don't really feel sorry for him.
No, I don't feel sorry for him at all. And multiple people are saying on TikTok that, like you've suggested, is this where DA Alan Bragg comes in and goes, hey, we've got Tish James has got this summary judgment for fraud and the Trump organization's getting dissolved. Let's tack on some criminal charges here. And since they've got liability claims against Don Jr., Eric, and Donald Trump, all three of them could be facing criminal charges out of this as well.
Yeah, you never hear anybody talking about that. Back when Alvin Bragg said, yeah, we're probably not going after him. I got to think Alvin Bragg's got a different attitude right now. He caught 17 convictions on the Trump organization. The Letitia James just put him on the hook in this lawsuit. Other than not wanting to appear to pile on, I can't imagine why Alvin Bragg wouldn't want to stick his nose in this and throw out some criminal indictments, because Donald Trump had his hands over everything and all the evidence is there with Letitia James or in the Manhattan district. They know what the fuck happened. There's probably plenty of opportunity. And now would be the time to do it when Donald Trump is weakened. When he first came out, Donald Trump had no indictments or charges. And it was scary to be the first one to indict him. But now it's going to be a free for all. The avalanche is going to start. Everybody's going to come out of the woods and claim that he's done this, that, or the other thing. And there will be more indictments, not only the superseding indictments with Jack Smith. And I can't wait to see those. Those are going to be fucking interesting.
No, I can't wait for those either, but I think you're right. There's going to be more indictments. And like I said, I think if they come after Donnie, they might also come after Don Jr., Eric, Alan Weisselberg, and bring criminal charges there. And then you got to start wondering where else is Eric and Don Jr. and maybe even Ivanka going to get criminal charges themselves. Yeah. They might not have to worry about making money.
They're going to have to worry about making license plates that fall 4 cents a plate.
Yeah. Or making little rocks out of bigger rocks or something.
Exactly. I think Ivanka feels like she slipped out of it because they let her out of this lawsuit thing, but I don't think they're done with Ivanka and Jared. There's been too much talk about that $2 billion. And even if they have to wait until 2024 when Democrats have the House, you can bet they're going to investigate that little
Oh
fucking
yeah.
transaction. That's just too crazy.
Oh, it's got to be looked into. Somebody's got to look into it, find out what's going on there. None of it makes sense. And, it wouldn't surprise me if at some point here, sometime soon, we find out that they transferred that money to Donnie after all this happened.
Well,
That they set up something.
if not, I'm guessing they didn't transfer all of it, but I'm guaranteeing you, Donnie got a taste, as they say. He
Oh,
gets a
at least.
he gets a cut of everything. You remember when he put up uh, uh, that fundraising grift for Herschel Walker. Yeah, give money to
Oh, yeah.
Herschel Walker. We got to win this. And then when you read it, out of every dollar, 99 cents went to Donald Trump and a penny went to fucking Herschel Walker. Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And gee, what happened? Herschel Walker lost. I mean, I don't think that was the only reason Herschel Walker lost, but it didn't help.
No, no. He's Herschel Walker was one of the few people that were in fact dumber than Donald Trump. And let's be honest, since he started, Donald Trump, people have said he's smart and he's playing 3D chess. If you listen to him and you see what he's done and how he's ending up, there's no question. This guy is sub-average intelligence. He's not articulate. He's crazy. He's spouting other things. And at this moment in time, he's got to be really freaking out. He's always been able to run out the clock or push it off till forever and then get people to give up. Government doesn't give up. He's got these criminal cases coming. He's got this lawsuit done, and he's not going to have his money. He's got to be freaking the fuck out because without his money and his power and his property, he's nobody. He's just an orange guy in an expensive suit with a dirty diaper. That's all the fuck he is right now.
Well, and if he's got no money, he won't be orange for very long. He won't be able to afford the makeup and the spray tan.
Yeah. Yeah. And the fact is he's trying to grift his people and the base might send him money, but all that money is going to defense lawyers. He's got no money to even run for president. And this is why I've said I don't see him as being the nominee in 2024. He's got people taking all his property, all his money, any money he does gets goes to defense attorneys. He's got no money to run for president. And it's not going to get better because the people sending him money are starting to dwindle too. He is in free fall and he's going to crash completely here very soon.
Oh, very, very much so. And like you said, the people sending him money, the small dollar donors, that he's grifted them and bled them dry.
Yeah.
And some of them are starting to finally realize that it was a grift. You hear about some of the dumb stuff that they fell for, those Trump bucks, the NFTs that ended up being worthless, this and that, and all the stuff ends up being not worth the paper it's printed on or
No.
whatever. And they're like, well, they're tired of getting cheated. The big money donors are actively funding against him.
Right. Koch
You know,
brothers.
yeah, well, the remaining Koch brother and some of the other big money Republican donors are again funding against him. He's not doing anything that is going to attract anybody else, any big money donor to give him money, especially
Yeah.
once the Trump organization is gone.
Right. Right. And it's pretty much gone. It's just a matter of getting these receiver representatives in to dissolve it. It's not like it's up for debate. They're going to
No.
dissolve his companies. They're fucking gone.
Well, right. But I mean, like once we figure out the fallout, which properties are gone and the dollar amount, and he could end up with no properties left after this. We don't know yet.
Well, take, for example, Scotland. He has a He has a couple of golf courses in Scotland and maybe in England or something. And I know the people in Scotland are pretty much tired of him and have problems with him and have been a little leery about, going after him. I have a feeling that now this has happened, they're going to feel a little more emboldened to go after him. The country of Scotland is going to go and say, fuck you, Donald Trump. Everybody else is taking it down, so we're going to get our pound of flesh.
Yeah, I think so. I know there was something about how he got the property and
Yeah.
some agreement he made with it, and I don't remember all the details, but something about um he agreed to not do something, like not develop it or something, and he may have violated that already, something like that.
Well, I know there was some bribery involved too. And that's, Donald Trump is always trying to game the situation. He'll cheat, he'll lie, he'll bribe, he'll do whatever he can. And in the days when he was perceived to have a lot of money and a lot of power, he could get away with it. Right now, he's not going to get away with anything. His ability to dance around and get things done by lying here and stealing from Peter to pay Paul, he can't do that anymore, because what it sounds like with this lawsuit and this decision being found liable of fraud for decades, essentially, it sounds like he just will not have access to anything. And without access to money, Donald Trump is fucking nobody at this point.
Oh yeah, like I think I was telling you before we went on, there was, I think it was Hawk that was saying it, but somebody was saying it, that he funnels most of his money through the Trump organization. He
Right,
held almost all of his personal money in that company,
right,
and now he's essentially locked out from all of it.
right.
So he's down to whatever he's got on hand and maybe in other bank accounts. But if it touched the Trump organization in any way, he could be potentially locked out of having any of it, and he's going to be done.
What's ironic is we keep hearing about him having these hundreds of different LLCs to get tax breaks or to protect it or anything. It looks like all he did with that is for naught, because it all funnels back, as you say, to the Trump organization. And with this particular lawsuit, it hits the Trump organization and it spreads like fucking cancer through the rest of his business, because it all funnels back to
Right.
Trump organization.
Where like he wasn't, sounds like he wasn't, well, they hit the Trump organization, DT Trump Holdings, and a few other companies I can't think of that were the top of those individual pyramids, but they went after all of them
Right.
in one shot. And like they realized how his companies were shelled and pyramided to supposedly give himself some protection. And they went after everything because he wasn't smart enough to really hide it the way, you know,
No,
it would have
no.
been successful.
Well, I have a feeling the reason that is because he probably dealt with his financial people like he does with his lawyers. The lawyers will tell him something and he doesn't like it and he'll say, no, do this. Well, he's not a lawyer and he's not bright, so they do stupid shit. And I would imagine that would happen with his financial stuff. I'm a fucking genius. Do it this way. You can't because it'll get you in trouble. No, just do it this way. I can see that happening, and it's going to fuck him over to no end. There is no way out of this, really. I mean, he can appeal,
No,
but
there's
it's
no,
not going to win. So he might
no,
delay him.
yeah, he's gonna get it. It's gonna appeal it. His appeals are gonna go nowhere quick, fast, and in a hurry.
Yeah.
And before we know it, it's gonna be, even if it makes it to the Supreme Court, which I don't even know if it can, it'll probably make it to the New York State Supreme Court, and they're not
That,
gonna side with him.
no, it can't go to the federal. I mean, they may try that, but it's not going to go to the federal Supreme Court. It is a state issue and it's going to go to the state Supreme Court. And if it does, he's fucked. Now, with receivership, as I understand it, because they also canceled all his licenses, his business licenses, it's not like these receivers are going to run this business to hold it for Donnie in case he wins. The receivers are there for one reason: to get everything put together to shut these fuckers down. Donald Trump even if he wins whatever other issues he's got, this part is a done deal. They're dissolving all his corporations. And once they do that, there's no way back from that unless you start anew someplace else, because you can't do it in New York.
Yeah, and it's effectively like, go back when, like, I'll pick on Kmart, but Kmart was a thing.
Right.
Effectively, what it's like them coming in to liquidate everything, 95% off, everything must go. That's
Right.
effectively what they're going to do to the Trump organization and all of his holdings.
My wife and I, because we are old, it's a weird contradiction. Because we are of the age we are, we will go to garage sales and estate sales, and we have no business buying shit because we've downsized and really don't have room for shit. We might buy something for somebody else or whatever, but it's just fun to go see this. I can't wait for Donnie Trump's garage sale. I I want to get some of that shit he's got just for posterity's sake. I want to get a Donald Trump ashtray or an unused package of diapers or something, just a remembrance of Donnie as he's rotting in
Oh,
fucking jail.
I wonder how much a solid gold toilet's going to go for.
To be perfectly honest with you, even if it is solid gold, if I know that Donald Trump sat on it a time or two, I don't want anything to do with it.
Uh, Completely disinfected, melted down. It's still gold.
Yeah, I guess. It's the yeah, no. But it is going to be that kind of thing. They are going to have to liquidate stuff. They're going to have to liquidate the property. There are Trump signs that are going to be coming off buildings. Um, it, we're so used to hearing, oh well, if this happens, that's going to happen. This fucking happened. It's it's happening. We don't have to
Yeah.
wait for fucking anything.
I mean, the final results, it sounds like I said earlier, it might take up to a month
Yeah,
for them to figure it all out. But they're going to be working behind the scenes and getting some of this stuff set up. Finding somebody to buy 40 Wall Street and finding somebody trying to line up a buyer to buy Trump Tower and giving him, hey, Donnie, you got 30 days to get your shit out of here. If,
yeah.
now would be the time if they haven't done it, for the FBI to go in with a search warrant.
Well, thank God they got those classified documents out of the storage areas in Mar-a-Lago. At least he's got some place to put some shit, because he's going to have to pull it out of Trump Tower and stuff it into Mar-a-Lago, unless they shut down Mar-a-Lago too, which is distinctly possible. It's going to
Well,
be interesting to see how far ranging this ends up being.
the thing about Mar-a-Lago I was seeing is apparently, was it Eric or Don Jr. was ranting about how the judge said it was only worth 18 million.
Right.
And what the judge said was, he didn't say, I think it's only worth 18 million. He said the tax assessor said it was worth 18 million, which is true. It's a fact.
Yeah.
They have the assessment documents. And Trump claimed it was worth 200 million or
Yeah.
some crazy figure. Well, but then they said, the person who I looked into it said that was based on it being a private residence.
Right.
And if it was a residence and it was a house, it might be worth close to what Trump valued it at. But Trump also signed an agreement with a tax break for like 20 or 30 years that it was not to be a primary residence. It was to be a hotel and golf course. And it
Right.
was a business.
Right.
So he's even ignoring his own stuff and what he's agreed to. And it could be interesting if they decide to actively enforce that. Even if he gets to keep Mar-a-Lago, technically it can't be his house.
Right. Right. Exactly. And the thing about it is if it's tied through the Trump organization and it is a business, given that this is business fraud, some of the fraud charges might carry over into Mar-a-Lago, because he's obviously overvaluating it, which is the basis of this whole fucking lawsuit. It's going to be interesting to see how far it goes as far as what they shut down and what they take. There's, I mean, if they decide to take Mar-a-Lago and Bedminster, where does he go? Uh, I know in in my condos, there's a couple open units. Maybe I'll email him some of the real estate shit. I'd love to have him here so I could pick on him fucking daily.
You wouldn't want him to live there, and he wouldn't do it. He'd try to only live there 6 months out of the year.
He's not going to have that kind of freedom. He's, if he's
No,
not in jail, he's going to be locked down in one spot till he dies. That's just what's going to
so
happen.
he's gonna be he's probably gonna have to either look at or get a different property. I'm guessing, and it's probably gonna be somewhere in the middle of the U.S. climate wise,
Yeah.
somewhere that it's temperate enough that he can handle it year round.
Well, the fact that he's going to be a pariah when this is all said and done, it's going to be hard to find a place. And he's not going to be able to fucking set it up. He's going to have somebody set it up for him. Now, the only person I know that he knows that actually has some money after this is all said and done is his son-in-law, at least for the moment. Yeah, Jared, could you buy me a little 2-bedroom expansion ranch house in fucking Omaha? Because I need a place to stay.
I don't think he would want to live in Omaha. It gets too cold here in the winter.
Well, life's going to be tougher for Donald Trump. He's not going to have a lot of fucking options. He's going to have to stay where he can get a place. All right, I tell you what, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back. We are back on the Rational Boomer podcast. Eric from Iowa, a listener, joins me on the show today. And Eric, we spent the first half of the show talking about how fucked Donald Trump is. And while that's enjoyable, we've got some other issues we've got to entertain here. We've got this impending, some may say imminent shutdown. It's the 28th today when you're listening to this podcast. They need to come to some kind of budget and appropriations compromise in order to keep the government open as of October 1. They got a little wiggle room because October 1 starts on Sunday and nothing's really open. So that kind of gives them a little extra time because not as much shit will happen on Sunday. But come Monday, the country could, or the government could be shut down. And while all this is going on, what is the House of Representatives doing? I mean, the Senate is in the process of passing something to get that part of it done, but the House has to pass something. And they're so concerned about the 2 days away from shutting down the government that they're having a hearing on impeaching Joe Biden. It's fucking ridiculous.
It's completely stupid. It's pointless. They've said numerous times they don't have any evidence. There's no evidence. They're not subpoenaing Joe Biden's records because there's no evidence. It's all political theater, and it's all basically for an audience of one.
Right.
The bulk
Right.
of it is for Donald Trump. But his 30% base or whatever is going to eat this up. They're not going to read past the headline that says, "Oh, households hearing on impeaching Joe Biden." Well, that means Joe Biden's guilty, and
Right.
that's that's what they're hoping for. But they've got to get something done on this funding the government. And I heard something interesting not long before we got on tonight. Somebody threw this out there that Kevin McCarthy is putting forth a bill that is it is so ridiculous. It is slashing funding for WIC, for food stamps, for heating assistance for the poor, for early childhood development, and just a ton of assistance for the poor.
Right.
That everyone knows it's going to be DOA in the Senate.
Right. It's not going to pass.
But he's doing it because Matt Gaetz has said, "Don't pass what we want, or we're going to hold a vote of no confidence for you." Somebody threw a suggestion out there. What if they shut the government down or come close to it? And one of the 5 or 10 reasonable-minded Republicans that would vote for this clean resolution to fund the government, which is why Kevin McCarthy hasn't brought it for a vote, because he knows it would pass.
Right.
What if one of them calls for a vote of no confidence in Kevin McCarthy for not funding the government?
That's a possibility. Or what about this? What about, yeah, that's a good point, because Kevin McCarthy has to bring the vote to the floor. And if it's not something he likes, he won't bring it. You know, some people have suggested, well, you get the 212 Democrats and 6 Republicans to vote on a bill, but if Kevin McCarthy doesn't bring the bill, you know, that may be an option. The problem is if you get a vote of no confidence and kick him out, then you've got disarray. Then you can get nothing done, including not opening up the government again. You need the Speaker of the House to get something done. If you kick him out, then you've got to elect somebody else, unless the Republicans and the Democrats get together and say, okay, let's pick a reasonable Republican or Hakeem Jeffries and vote him in with the 212 Democratic votes and the 6 or 7 Republican votes. It's getting down to that point where something dramatic is going to have to happen, but it doesn't seem like anybody out there has the balls to do anything crazy.
No, but the idea that even a reasonable-minded Republican maybe doesn't even have to call for the vote, but just goes up to Kevin McCarthy and says, hey, Kevin, you got to pass something. Let's get the government funded. Pass this thing the Senate did. Give us 90 days or 45 days or whatever it is. Let us work on it. Or I'm going to hold this vote for you.
Yeah.
And now, you know, if I hold it saying, hey, I'm going to call for the vote saying, because you're not funding the government, you know, all the Democrats are on board at this point. So now we only need 2 or 3 to go against you. You're probably going to be out.
You know who the pressure is really on is the reasonable minded, and I put that in quotations because I'm not sure there is such a thing, the reasonable minded Republicans, because they know if there is a shutdown, that may end the party, certainly be devastating in the 2024 election because they will get the blame. And the MAGA fucks just don't care. The problem is there's only like 35 MAGA fucks. Why they're letting them, this small minority of a group, bully the rest of the Republicans, I just don't get it for the life of me. They're ruining their party and their careers because they're listening to fucking Matt Gaetz or Paul Gosar.
Because they're the loudest group. And I think they fall into, like I've talked about numerous times on your program, that they buy into the same problem most of the Republicans have, where they think their minority is a bigger majority than it is, because they're more vocal. So you got this small group that's very, very vocal, very, very loud, but nobody wants to be the one to rock the boat. So none of them are stepping up against this group. Well, nobody's really speaking out and saying, hey, you guys are dumbasses. So, you know, if each person's looking around the room going, hey, nobody else is really speaking up against this group of 30 or 40 people. Maybe there's a bigger group behind them than 30 or 40 people, and I just don't know about it.
Right.
You know, they're all scared, thinking the group is bigger than it really is because they're the loudest.
You know, to be honest with you, if being the loudest is the criteria, then you and I could somehow get in into the House of Representatives and run this motherfucking country.
Oh, that'd be great.
Because I can be as loud as shit, and I know you can too. I've said since this whole thing started, I said this during the debt ceiling crisis thing, and that was a worse situation than we have now, but this is still bad. I said, knowing politicians, they will come up with some resolution at the last minute of the last day. And I still think that may be the case. They'll be in there all weekend, and Sunday they'll pull out some last ditch effort to make sure it doesn't close down the country. They can't resolve the issue, but they'll get some short stopgap thing. Now, people have said, we're not going to do that. I'm not going to vote for that. But when they're sitting on there on Sunday, when the country is essentially shut down already, I have a feeling that something's going to get pulled out, because it's too devastating to the Republican Party as a whole. And at that point, the other Republicans are going to have to take a stand against MAGA and maybe put them in the place they belong, in a minority situation. They're weak ass bitches, and all they need to do is be exposed.
One of the things I thought of, and heard this a while back, like last week, I think they were talking, and there were 3 or 4 Republican members that were out sick at the time.
Right.
So that brought the magic number down. If all the Democrats were there, that brought the magic number to even like 2 Republicans to pass anything.
Right.
So theoretically, Sunday, what the Republicans could do to save face is just have enough. Well, just have enough Republicans not show up, like just enough to where it passes with all Democratic votes. Like on the short-term resolution, maybe the one giving them until mid-October. But I could see them trying to pull something funny like that, saying, "Well, see, we didn't vote for it, but they took advantage of us not having everybody. We weren't,
See, the problem with this is that they're talking about how short a time they are right now. They had plenty of fucking time. The fact of the matter is when they did the debt ceiling, there was an agreement between Biden and Kevin McCarthy. But Kevin McCarthy also had an agreement with MAGA, which was contradictory to what he did with Joe Biden. So if anybody's truly at fault for this shutdown, it is Kevin McCarthy and, of course, the Republicans. Kevin McCarthy doesn't have the testicular fortitude to stand by any fucking deal that he's ever done. He's just bouncing around. He's a weak Speaker of the House, and he knows this is going to, even if he doesn't get kicked out, he's going to go down in history as the most horrific fucking Speaker of the House in history. I mean, I think he's already attained that.
if he's not the worst, he's one of them. And they had a deal with Biden, but he can't bring that deal to the floor because it'll pass.
Right.
Like even that continuing resolution from the Senate, he's not bringing it to a vote because he knows it'll pass. The deal he made with Joe Biden would probably pass, and he can't bring it to a vote because it'll only pass with 10% Republican votes or something like that,
Right.
And it's going to be majority Democrats that have passed this thing, and he doesn't want to bring it to a vote because it's going to make him look bad.
Right.
Even doing his job will make him look bad. He's in a no-win situation. There's nothing he can do here to win.
But do you think that he'll do that at the very last moment? You ride this out to the last moment and do it. Because let's be perfectly honest, some people think he's afraid of the MAGA folks voting to vacate his office or a vote of no confidence or something like that. Honestly, I don't think they have enough votes to actually do that unless the Democrats got involved. The Republicans don't have enough votes to vacate Kevin McCarthy. It's MAGA, and the other people will realize, even if they don't like Kevin McCarthy, by getting rid of him, it'll put the Republican Party in disarray for a week, 2 weeks, maybe a month, while they're trying to get another Speaker of the House, because literally nothing can get done unless you have a Speaker of the House.
Yeah. I think right now he's more worried about the Freedom Caucus and the MAGA fucks because they're the only ones talking about doing a motion to vacate.
Right.
Like I said, the thing I saw which was suggested is if one of the reasonable Republicans throw it out there and say, "Hey, we're going to vacate your chair. We're going to pull a vote to vacate the chair because you're letting the government shut down," the Democrats will get on board with that motion. I
Right.
would believe, I think, I could be wrong, but if they're doing it for a legitimate reason of, hey, you did not, you let the government close, so we're going to vacate your position. I can see the Democrats getting on board with that vote. They're not going to, they'll vote to save us, but if the MAGA fucks try to vacate him for funding the government, which is what they said they do. Oh, you vote to fund the government? Oh, well then we're gonna kick you out of your cushy job. The Democrats won't support that.
No, but the thing about it is if he goes against the Freedom Caucus and goes with the Democrats, and the Freedom Caucus will then have to be called on their bluff to try to vacate Kevin McCarthy, and they fail, that then exposes the Freedom Caucus, as weak as they are, and would put the Republicans in a position to just end them. They've been exposed for their weakness. They don't, you know, I told my I told my kids this once. I said, listen, when you make a threat of something, whether be blackmail or something like that, the threat is strongest before you execute whatever you're threatening. The moment you execute the threat and it's maybe not as serious as what the people perceived it to be, you immediately become 100 times weaker, which is what would happen to the Freedom Caucus if they try to vacate Kevin McCarthy and it doesn't work. This would be a perfect time to have the Republicans just separate themselves from the MAGA people. Not that they could still do much because they still hold the seats, but there's got to be a breaking point here. This MAGA thing is it's filled with such stupid people and people who are working against this country. It's not going to last forever. It's got to be taken down, and this may be as good a time as any.
Oh yeah, I mean, their threat only works up until the point when they have to call a vote because they'll never have the vote to oust him.
Yeah.
Like you said, it only works up until they have to execute it. And you're right, they need to knock these fuckers down a peg or two. And I think if they do try to vacate the chair, like you said, then they get exposed for a week. If the rest of the Republicans have enough uh, courage to stand up to him and say, okay, you played your biggest card, you're weak as shit, you're done. Let's get some real shit done. I just don't think most Republicans have that much courage.
No, I don't either. But the thing about it is after the debt ceiling thing, what Kevin McCarthy did to MAGA and the Freedom Caucus, that would have been the time that he went against them, and they could have taken the vote to vacate Kevin McCarthy, but they didn't. No talk of it, not even a threat of it, because they knew they couldn't fucking complete the deal. And I think they're going to be screaming loud now up until the point they actually have to do it. The reasonable minded Republicans have to get control of their party. Otherwise, they're doomed anyway, but they're going to be doomed even more if they allow MAGA to continue to control their party, especially in the House.
One of the things I saw, well, the other part of what I saw was if the reasonable minded Republicans went with the Democrats and said, hey, we're going to hold a motion to vacate Kevin McCarthy as speaker, vote with us so we can get this government funded. The suggestion was, okay, who do they pick for speaker? Well, you either pick a reasonable minded Republican, or just so they have the ability to get shit done and they can kind of sidestep all the MAGA fucks, we'll back Hakeem Jeffries.
Right. I mean, the only way they could elect another Speaker of the House other than Kevin McCarthy, the only way it can be done is with Democratic help. And they don't like that, but that's the only option.
And I think the only option the Democrats would go for, because there's not very many good Republicans left, is okay, fine, we'll back your play because we want to fund the government, but Hakeem Jeffries becomes speaker.
I gotta wonder, has there ever been a case where there's been a Speaker of the House who wasn't part of the majority of the House? I don't know that that's ever happened, but these
I
are
don't know if
unusual
it's ever
times.
happened. I'm not sure. I'd have to do some digging, um, and see. But I also don't think there's nothing that says it can't happen.
Right, right. It can't be done. It's all about the votes. Whoever gets voted in is it.
But the thing is, with because I don't think even with Hakeem Jeffries as speaker, even though he's the minority, or he's in his party's in the minority, it wouldn't change committees assignments.
No,
Like they would still have the majority committees, and I don't think he could control. He could maybe pull up a vote to kick some people off, and if he had enough votes, they could be removed from their committees like they did to Marjorie Taylor Greene
right.
last Congress. But they'd still have their committees, and he'd probably still let them hold their little investigations. But he would set the rules,
Right.
and I think the first thing he would do is, okay, the rest of the term, there's no motion to vacate. I'm the speaker from here to the end of the term.
End of the term and into the next term when the Democrats take control. Yeah, absolutely.
I mean,
Now, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this shutdown. This is kind of important. There's going to be a lot of people that struggle and suffer through a shutdown. It won't be the politicians, but apparently MAGA and the Republicans are willing to sacrifice those people for their own fucking ego. And that's a sad state, sad condition of this country and our government.
oh, very much so. I mean, one of the things, they still get paid.
Yeah, they get paid, they get their health care.
None of that gets threatened. And I know the only way to pass it would be to elect people who agree to put the same limitations on themselves. But if I could enact anything that I wanted and make it a thing, I would pass it so that any sitting member of Congress, anytime there's a government shutdown because it's not funded, is ineligible to run in the next election.
That's not a bad
The
idea.
next time they are up for election, period. Oh, we're 1 year into your 6-year term, Mr. Senator. Well, 5 years from now, when you're up for re-election, sorry, you don't get a run.
Yeah, there's no reason for this to happen. It's a pretty simple rubber stamp type thing under most circumstances. It's when it becomes a political weapon. That's when we we all are done a disservice. I wanted to bring something else up. We had something yesterday that would have been big news under any circumstances, but nobody cares. And that was the GOP debate. The GOP debate, I think it happened in California yesterday, and Donald Trump obviously decided not to come, probably a wise choice. There would be a lot of questions for Donald Trump that he would not want to ask. You know, the the whole taking down of his business happened just before the debate. That would have showed up. We've got the imminent closing down of the country, the impeachment. The whole point of having a debate is to gather interest and deliver information to make them candidates stronger when it comes down to the 2024 election. And their GOP debates have become an absolute joke. In fact, I'm reading a quote here. Vivek Ramaswamy, you remember him from last time, the loudmouth smirking dipshit who has no chance at all. Apparently, Nikki Haley got fed up with Vivek Ramaswamy on the debate stage, telling him, "Every time I hear you, I feel a little bit dumber." So it got a little
Nice.
contentious at the debate. I only saw bits and pieces. I saw Ron DeSantis talking. I can't listen to this shit. It's ridiculous.
You've seen more than me. I was waiting for the highlights of the transcripts to
Yeah,
come out on TikTok.
yeah, me too. It, but it just goes to show where the Republican Party is uh, as we're headed toward 2024. They can't even get an audience or people to care about their debates for the primary. Their main candidate doesn't even show up. I mean, everything that the Republicans are doing as of this point have failed horrifically. They can't get out of their own fucking way.
Right. And it's not going to get any better for
No.
them. And if this ends Donald Trump in the next month or two, that could be the best thing for him if he steps away from politics. That would give them time to coalesce behind somebody else. But then it comes back to who? Well, Ron DeSantis is awkward and stupid, and the people aren't going to want him. Vivek Ramaswamy sounds more and more like a Donald Trump clone,
Yeah.
and they wouldn't. And most of the Republicans are racist. They wouldn't pick him. What was it? Tim Scott? No, he's got no chance. Nikki Haley, she's got no chance. I'm trying to think even who else is all in the race. The dumb fuck from North Dakota.
Oh,
What's
yeah.
his name?
Yeah.
He
Burgum.
doesn't have a chance.
Asa Hutchinson's no chance.
No.
I mean, that's the thing is Donald Trump will not leave the race of his own accord. He's going to have to be forced out. He's going to get sick. He's just going to be too buried in legal stuff, but he will fight to stay in the race because he believes that's going to save him. And as we saw yesterday, ain't nothing going to save him. Ron DeSantis, Mr. Socially Awkward, his support has dropped by 50% in the last couple of months. He's not headed the right direction. And as you pointed out, the other ones, it's just a fucking clown show of a bunch of people who have no support. The Republicans are in a bad situation. They don't have a solid candidate for 2024. They might think Donald Trump is going to be there, but he's not. Put it this way, Eric, if you had somebody say, okay, all your finances, all your property, we're taking that away, and you're on trial for 91 counts of felony crimes, are you even going to have the ability to think about running for president? Are you going to have the time based on court appearances?
I wouldn't.
No, you can't. It's going to get too insurmountable for him. He's just not going to be able to do it. And Ron DeSantis is going to be no hero. So who? That's why I've said, if they decide to try to rehabilitate the Republican Party, with Mitt Romney quitting or resigning or retiring after 2024, he'd be about the only one that could give them any kind of hope of at least looking normal. Still wouldn't win. He wouldn't have a fucking prayer.
No, he wouldn't. Romney would be one that now I would see Romney maybe making a run at it. If they could get the rest of the party to coalesce around him, maybe, and I've been saying it for a while, is maybe Chris Christie, just because he's still in the race, even though he's not really doing anything right now, but he would need some major endorsements from major players in the party.
Right. But see, they're going to have to run around and get anybody at some point if Donald Trump's not going to be there. And they're going to just have to grab anybody who looks like they won't embarrass them because they know they can't win.
Kim Reynolds.
What's that?
They could have Kim Reynolds. That'll be Iowa's contribution.
Yeah, that would be great. That would be great. I mean, you've had all these people like Vivek Ramaswamy and some of these other trying to emulate Donald Trump. And it's not working because Donald Trump is going down the shitter. So do they decide, okay, I'm not going to do this anymore because it's not working. Donald Trump is done. I can't be a better Donald Trump because Donald Trump is a piece of shit and he's going to jail and he's a broke ass bitch now. He's not the guy I want to emulate because his reputation around the country is a joke. But we're getting a little late to change horses in the middle of the stream. So the Vivek Ramaswamys or Tim Scotts, they're done. They're done if they're trying to be Donald Trump light. It's just not going to go. So they're in a bad situation. They really don't have a candidate that has a legitimate, I won't even say win because they can't win, but at least not embarrass them, at least kind of be in the race somehow. Republicans are in a fucking bad way. They don't say it out loud, but they are in bad shape.
They're in very bad shape. Um, and they're not, it's not going to get any better for them, unfortunately.
No,
They don't have that candidate. They don't have that mentality. They're not reaching younger people by any stretch of the imagination.
no,
There's still some that are buying into it, but it's like 25% of Gen Z is voting Republican.
yeah,
Well, when they're entering when they're entering the voting booths at the same pace as baby boomers and silent generation are dying off, it's, they can't win if they're not replacing them with younger voters.
no, they can't win. And that's what I've said all along. People keep coming to me and saying, well, what if Donald Trump wins? What if a Republican wins and pardons Donald Trump? It's just not going to happen. There is no path to Republicans winning the presidential race in 2024. It's not even close. Like I've said, Joe Biden won by 7 million votes in 2020. Let's say Donald Trump is the candidate. He's done nothing to increase his support or increase his votes. He's done everything to lessen that. He's probably going to get beat by 10 or 12 million votes if he's the candidate.
Oh, probably, and then some. And um, on top of it, even if the younger people aren't voting at all, even if they don't vote, you're losing out on your, the silent generation, the baby boomers that are dying off. They are reliable voters. They vote in every election, no matter
Right.
what's up for grabs. They show up to vote for it, and they're just not showing up. So even by virtue of, even if you discount all the young people, you're losing voters.
Right. Well, the thing about it is in 2020, we had an unprecedented amount of people voting. And it wasn't because they were patriotic or because they just wanted to participate in the election. There was a lot of fucking fear. The Democrats were afraid of Donald Trump getting back in, and the Republicans who voted were afraid we were going to become communists and socialists. So it was all about fear, and everybody got out of their seats for once and voted. And it's not going to be any different in 2024. We know in
No.
2022, the overturning of Roe v. Wade played a huge role. And I guarantee you this, the women and the people who support women with the Roe v. Wade thing, they haven't forgotten. That's over and above
No.
all the other shit going on. That's maybe the biggest reason the Republicans are going to lose. You would have thought after they got their ass kicked in 2022, you would have thought they'd step back from it. Nope, they fucking embrace it. That's dumb.
Well, and every time it's put on the ballot as a ballot initiative, they lose.
Right.
People come out and say, no, women should have a right to it, and and they said, well, we're going to kick it back to the states. It should have always been a states' rights thing. But then now they're losing it in the states, and it's not going the way they wanted. Now they're saying fit national ban,
Right. Right.
and it's
Do these people
ridiculous.
not investigate what they're saying? Give it back to the
No,
states, it'll be better. Did they not look into that? I mean, fuck.
no. And generally speaking, for a lot of things, when you leave decisions up to the states fuck it up.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I could be getting my history wrong here, but I know when they wanted to raise the drinking age to 21,
Right.
that's a state issue.
Right.
Each state passes their own law. But what the federal government, if I remember this correctly, somebody told me this. I think it was a little before my time. But the federal government said, okay, we want nationally the drinking age to be 21. If you don't pass a law in your state to make the drinking age 21. We're just not going to give you federal highway funds.
Right. Right.
Something like that. Because we know we can't trust you to do the right thing and make the right decision on your own. We have to threaten you a little bit.
Right. Yeah. No, I remember that when I was young, it was 18. And the argument was, well, if we can go to war, we should be able to drink beer. That made a little sense. But so then by the time I became of age, it was 19. They raised it a year here in Minnesota. In Wisconsin, it was still 18. So what we would do is get in our cars, drive about 35 miles east to go into Wisconsin, get hammered, and then drive 35 miles back to Minnesota where we would be illegal, not even thinking about the fact that if we get pulled over for drunk driving or if we just get picked up in a restaurant because we're drunk in Minnesota, even though we did it legally in Wisconsin, it was fucking nuts.
Well, I know part of it was they wanted to raise it to 21 because they found having it at 18, sure, you're 18, but your buddy's 16 and you're
Right.
buying beer for your buddy who's 16 and they were having trouble with it in high school.
Right. Right.
So they wanted to raise it. But my point is that was something they left to the states. The states fucked it up.
Right.
Same with voting rights. Look at Alabama. They left it up to the state. The states fucked it up.
Right.
State was told you fucked it up. They fucked it up even more.
Yeah, they said you can't do that, and they said we're going to do it anyway. That's the amazing thing. I mean, is there no teeth in our government to get anything fucking done? Everybody gets to do whatever they want to do.
Well, now with that, they put a special master or whatever they want to call it over the district maps, and this person is the one who gets to draw the maps, and they have to abide by it.
Right. Right.
It's binding. Now, I don't know what level or how they fully enforce this, but there is a court order that says this is what is going to happen.
Hopefully it's a little stronger than hopefully it's a little stronger than getting a subpoena from the from Congress, because apparently nobody cares about that shit.
Yeah, well, they care about it. The Republicans care about it when they're the ones issuing the subpoenas.
Right, right, exactly. We're getting toward the end of this now. Let's just kind of go back a little bit about Donald Trump's things, because this is paramount, really. I mean, this lawsuit that they decided on a summary judgment, they're still going to trial on October 2nd. There are some other things. What was decided was the main core of this whole lawsuit, but there's other parts that they're going to try, and then they have to decide how much they're going to fine this guy. Doesn't matter if it's 250 million or 250 billion. He don't have the money. All that's going to happen is he's going to be liquidated completely, and he's going to be I think Eddie Murphy on one of his old shows, it might have been on Delirious or something, where he he was having an argument with his dad. and his dad was mad at him and kicked him out of the house, and he said, "You'll be a no house walking the dog motherfucker." And that's what Donald Trump is going to be.
Yeah, except Donald Trump doesn't like dogs. But what I was just thinking when you said, "Oh, they're going to liquidate everything." Well, now I'm going to use Mar-a-Lago because it's the number that sticks out in my head. The assessor says it's at between anywhere from 18 to 24 million or something like that, and say they got to sell it. They're going to put it on the market somewhere around that market price,
right,
at a price close to what the assessor said.
right.
They're not going to be able to try to sell it for what Donald would try to sell it for.
No,
Because, Donnie, if he had to sell it himself, he'd try to sell it for 400, 500 million. Oh, I just sold one property. I made all my money. And he'd try to do some shell game with it.
well, he'd probably try to sell
it.
He'd sell it to the Russians or the Saudis for $1 billion and get it.
He'd try, but he's not worth as much to them anymore.
But the important thing to remember is when he's in receivership, like he is going to be, he doesn't get the money from the sale. He's already grifted his money. That money is going to recoup the government or the banks or whoever
Mhm.
got fucked over in this. He tried to say that there was no victim and that everybody does it. And I was just rounding up and it's amazing to me. Now in this lawsuit, not only did he lose, but his lawyers got sanctioned. I think it was like $75,000 a piece for the frivolous, stupid shit they put up there that Donald Trump no doubt pushed them to do. It's what a shit show. I mean, his lawyers may be getting paid by Donald Trump, but they keep getting sanctioned or disbarred. Why keep doing this shit?
No idea, but I know the part of the penalty that they got, it was because they had brought like the same defense to some of the stuff like three different times before the same judge in the same case.
Right, right.
And he's like, no. He goes, this has been decided. No, I already told you no about this. No, fine. You owe the court money.
Well, and you know what's happening there? Donald Trump is saying, "Tell him this. I already told him that. Tell him again. I already told him that. Tell him again." And they just, they just do whatever he says. It's like me going in and getting my car fixed, and um, and having a guy fix my car, and he says, "Well, it's the transmission." No, it's not. Fix the serpentine belt. Get me a new serpentine belt. It'll be fine. That's exactly what he's doing with his lawyers, and it's always doom. It's always a failure because Donald Trump doesn't know shit from shit.
No, he doesn't. But this is what has worked against other businesses and other private people.
Right.
He's never had to face the music because he's always, I hate to put it like this, but effectively bought off his politicians. He's bought off the attorneys. Like
Bought
I was
off.
saying earlier, where he was donating to their campaigns.
And as big as his companies and his wealth was supposed to be, essentially he was a big fish in a small pond. His alleged money, even though we know it's all fraudulent now, but the perception of him being wealthy and famous and powerful and all that stuff, he was able to bully people or run out the clock on some people and just be a bully. Unfortunately, the worst choice Donald Trump ever made was running for president, then winning the presidency because he's in a whole new arena. The government doesn't run out of time and money. They are going to bury you. If the government wants to get you, you're going to get got. Whether you're Donald Trump or Bernie Madoff or a fucking anybody, they're going to get you.
Right, right. And as much as he wants to say it's a political witch hunt, it's this and it's that, it's not. It's not Joe Biden going after him. No, you finally got caught committing these crimes.
Right.
It has got you, you were at this scale, the small scale of doing stuff. And then you got a little bigger, and then you got a little bigger, and you've pushed your luck to the point where it is so egregious and so ridiculous, they finally had to step in and say, no, Donnie.
Yeah, you went all in and you lost.
Yeah.
You went all in and you lost. So what do you think Donald Trump's going to do now? I mean, he is literally, I mean, I've said this a million times on TikTok, he's fucked, but now he is truly and profoundly fucked. There's nothing he can say or do to change this stuff. So it's going to be interesting when you get a guy like this cornered with no way out. It couldn't be a little dangerous.
He's gonna bitch, whine, and complain all over his crappy non-truth social. He's gonna bitch and complain probably all over Twitter, beg for money, and try to rile up his base into some sort of violence to stop this from happening.
Yeah.
Chain yourself to my buildings and keep them from selling it, or some stupid shit.
The problem is
Which ain't gonna do shit.
He's not getting that kind of reaction out of these people. These people are scared to death because 1,000 of them already been convicted. They're too afraid to do it. They don't have the power to do it. And even if they tried, the fucking National Guard would go in there and wipe them out. So they can't do that. Some people are suggesting that Donald Trump might flee the country, Russia or Arab Emirates or someplace where he can't be brought back. I don't think it's, I don't think he's going to do that because there's really no place he can go to hide. But I don't think Vladimir Putin wants him because he's of no value to him anymore. Donnie and Vlad weren't buddies. Donnie was just a useful idiot. And once he becomes a worthless idiot, Putin doesn't want anything to do with him.
Well, one of the things though, he wants to flee the country. He's got to fuel up that jet of his. But if all of his money's tied up into the Trump organization and he can't touch it, he can't buy fuel, so he can't go anywhere anyway.
Well, and that's assuming that's not one of the items that's going to be liquidated. I don't know why there wouldn't be attached because it's part of the Trump organization.
Oh yeah, his jet could be part of the Trump organization. And honestly, if it was me, just because I'm a vindictive little kind of person, I'm kind of petty, one of the first things I would take is that damn plane.
Right. Well, people say that he wouldn't flee the country because of the Secret Service, because it is a law enforcement entity, that they would stop him. I don't know that that's true because we have some questions about the Secret Service. But I would think if the Secret Service let him go, they'd fucking probably have to go with him because they would be in trouble and potentially prosecuted for not doing their
Yeah.
job.
And the problem is whoever goes with them, whichever agents are corrupt enough to do that, they could all be charged and they would have to live out the rest of their time and they wouldn't get cushy accommodations anywhere. They'd probably end up in jail or wherever they go.
Yeah.
There's a no-win situation for those guys either, guys and
No,
gals.
no, it's a no-win situation. I mean, it goes back to what I said before. People always told me nothing's going to happen to Donald Trump or the Republicans. They're going to get away with it. But we're at a point right now where those people who said that, I can categorically say you were fucking wrong because it did happen. There is no way out. There is zero way out for Donald Trump because even if he can delay the lawsuit and hold on to his property to some extent, which I don't think he can, he's still got 91 felony charges he's got to address in the next year. And a number of them, at least a number of them, are going to bring him down. He should be thinking about what it's going to be like to be broken in jail because that's his future at this point.
Well, sounds like he's already asking his attorneys,
I heard
what's
that.
it going to look like if I go to jail? What would they do? Were they going to send me to a minimum security club fed? Or is it going to be maximum security? Is it, what's it going to be like? How are they going to do that? Like, he's terrified of the thought of going to prison.
Well, the thing about it is, even if he goes to a club fed and it's fairly comfortable, which is likely, he's not going to get McDonald's hamburgers. He's not going to have an aide to change his diaper. He's not going to be able to move about, which he is prone to do with his ADD. He's not going to get Adderall. His life is going to be fucked. He's going to be eating shit that he doesn't want to eat, and he's going to have people telling him what to do all day long, which is not accustomed to.
Yeah, exactly. He's not. By his state, like what we would consider from a prison standpoint. Oh, that looks kind of cushy for
Yeah.
him. Even if it's the cushiest prison out there, for him, that's going to be pure torture, and it is going to be the worst thing he could ever imagine.
Well, for his ego, being found guilty, that's going to kill him. And then not having the freedom to move around, not having a presence online, not being able to grift money, not being able to talk to other people, because he thrives on people telling him how great he is. You ain't getting that in prison. You just ain't getting it. And he's not going to have a Facebook account while he's in prison. I guarantee you that.
No, no. And he's not going to be able to call into Sean Hannity or any of them on Fox News. They're not going to take, you know, could you imagine? Well, we got the former president collect from prison on our show tonight. They'd never air it. It never happened.
I'm going to do a debate. I'm going to do a rally live from Rikers. That would be fucking awesome. Now, as I'm wrapping this up, I heard something, and I haven't been able to verify it. And even if I can verify it, I don't know what it means. But I heard that Sidney Powell has given up some evidence, and that she's kind of implicated Kevin McCarthy in the whole overturning the election, Samuel Alito, the Supreme Court justice, and somebody else, maybe it was Meadows. But that's supposed to have come out. The unfortunate thing about that is the person who's saying it is a pathological liar. So I don't know how much value there is in that. But if that's true, that's going to open up some investigations where we haven't seen them before on this topic with McCarthy and Alito, which could be interesting.
Well, that would be something. Could you imagine Kevin McCarthy somehow pulling this out of the fire, passing something to keep the government funded for a year or whatever, and then almost immediately walking headfirst into an indictment in Georgia, and
That's
then
about,
losing his speakership anyway?
that's about Kevin McCarthy's luck. He's not a lucky guy. I don't know. The thing is, over the next month or so, there's going to be so much going down and plenty to talk about. And I appreciate you coming on and talking to me today. It's been a little while since I had a guest on, and I always have more fun doing the show when there's a guest here. And especially you, Eric, down in Iowa, you have a different perspective than I do up here in Minnesota. But I think we're, at least the people listening to the podcast, for the most part, are all of a like mind. And I think we're finally feeling some vindication, and we're starting to feel a little more lighthearted because finally we're starting to see some accountability.
I agree with you there. I think we're all starting to see it. And I know it cheers me up every time I see a TikTok or a video talking about Donnie losing his business and what this is going to look like. I'm waiting for the final outcome of this to see what it really looks like, because I'm sure those appeals are going to go nowhere. But we've all got to take some pleasure in this and take some hope in the fact that it's a step in the right direction. And this is just step one in the final collapse of Donald Trump.
Right. And I think it's important to point out, and I've said this before, this is not a time to sit back on our laurels and let up. We still need to keep pounding on this thing, keep exposing whatever we can expose. You never let a bully get a breath, because they will come back and haunt you like a fucking bad case of cancer. We've got to put Donald Trump down permanently. We've got to get him out of the equation. We've got to, in 2024, take the Republicans off the board too. That's the only way we can start to fix things in this country.
Yeah, we do. We need to get out. We need to message. We need to go after all of the House seats. We need to go after. I think we can keep the Senate, but it's going to be an uphill climb because we're defending way more seats than the Republicans are.
Yeah.
We need to go out, get after them, make sure we're, pushing, and keep the voters engaged enough that they show up, and not that, oh, well, Donald Trump's out of money now, he's faced some accountability, he's lost businesses, oh, the threat's over. We got to keep the message going, and that there's still more work to do than that.
Absolutely. The threat isn't over. We're still hanging by a thread here with the shutdown and with the Republicans and with MAGA. We've got to put them down permanently, and that's going to take a lot of work, a lot of votes. And we always encourage people to keep the pressure on. And I'll be honest with you, once it's all said and done, and a lot of people are saying what you're saying. I personally believe the Democrats will get the House and the Senate, and of course the presidency. I believe that's going to happen. But even when that happens, when the Democrats in charge, if we're really concerned about the people of this country, we still need to keep the pressure on the Democrats, because politicians, as a rule, will sit back on their laurels when they don't have pressure on them. And if they don't have to fight the Republicans for the next 2 or 4 years, they may just lay back and say, oh, let's just coast. We can't allow that. Not even with the Democrats.
no, we can't. I'm not saying we can't keep the Senate. I'm just saying we've got the tougher fight between the two
Yeah.
parties
Yeah.
because we're defending, it's like 20 some seats to like 12 or something.
Yeah. We've got the tougher fight, but they got all the fucking indictments and all the evidence
True.
coming out and the destruction of Donald Trump. So I think it's a pretty even battle, if not siding with the Democrats. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Whatever happens, we'll deal with. Eric, thank you for coming on the show. I appreciate it immensely as always, and of course, you're always welcome back.
Well, thanks for having me on one more time.
All right. Well, we'll be looking forward to the next time. For those folks listening, thank you for taking the time to listen to the show. I hope you have a great day, and of course, we'll talk to you again tomorrow.